गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गनर शॉट। गनर शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। आज 13 तारीख है। ताइवान में इलेक्शंस हो गए, पर वो किसी और दिन। 15 तारीख को हमारा आर्मी डे है और आर्मी डे से पहले चीफ ऑफ आर्मी स्टाफ ने 2 दिन पहले एक बड़ा कॉन्फ्रेंस लिया था, जिसमें इन्होंने क्रिटिकल एस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ सिक्योरिटी और डिफेंस ऑफ इंडिया को आउटलाइन किया। इन्हीं चीजों के ऊपर डिस्कस करने के लिए हमारे साथ हैं जनरल हसनैन सर। गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गनर शॉट वंस अगेन। It's a pleasure to have my co-commander back on my channel.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Happy New Year to all our viewers and Jai Hind. Bhai, it is always a pleasure to join Gunner Shot. Let me tell you that.
मैं सबको बताना चाहता हूँ, शायद आप लोगों को पता नहीं है, जनरल हसनैन जो है वो ज्यादा माने जाते हैं और जाने जाते हैं कि उन्होंने 15 कोर कमांड किया, और ये भी आजकल ज्यादा जाना जाते हैं क्योंकि वो ही इज इन द डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट अथॉरिटी, और डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट में इनका बहुत बड़ा हाथ है। पर जो चीज जो नहीं जानते हैं सब, कि ही आल्सो कमांडेड अ स्ट्राइक कोर, द स्ट्राइक कोर, सुदर्शन चक्र कोर, व्हिच इज सपोज्ड टू कट पाकिस्तान इनटू हाफ इन केस इट हैज टू हैपन। एंड उस वक्त ये हमारे कोर कमांडर साहब थे, मैं इनका आर्टिलरी डिवीजन का जीओसी था। तो वी गो अ लॉन्ग वे बैक।
बहुत माहिर डिवीजन कमांडर थे ये हमारे।
थैंक यू सर। और ये यही नहीं, हम इससे पहले हम साथ एज कर्नल्स भी काम कर चुके हैं इन एमएस ब्रांच ऑफ इंडियन आर्मी, और हमारा पुराना रिश्ता है। तो वी आर गोना टॉक ऑफ समथिंग वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग सर टुडे, बट बिफोर दैट I'd like to wish everyone a happy Lohri, a happy Makar Sankranti, and a happy Pongal and a happy Bihu and all that, because today I think across India सबका कोई ना कोई त्योहार है हर घर में।
Happy festive season actually. Happy festive
season. Yeah. एक तरीके से देखा जाए तो ये हमारा एक्चुअली न्यू ईयर है। Okay. But then what did the Chief of Army Staff say 2 days back? Which is more important? उन्होंने ये बोला है कि northern borders are stable but sensitive after 3 years of confrontation. मोटा तौर पर terrorist activities in Rajouri are an issue of concern. He's expressed concern over the situation at the Indo-Myanmar border. He's also spoken very positively about induction of some new technologies, and that the army has addressed various domains of warfare through these technologies. We'll talk of it because there's a very positive development which has happened from IIT Madras. Then he's spoken of optimization of strength, Agniveer induction is progressing smoothly and all that, which is a work in progress. Aj we need not touch on it. And then he spoke of better jointness, but not much about theaterization. और ये मोटे point थे sir. So out of these, I think the first 3 which we spoke of are very critical. We'll speak of them. In the last point, there is something which we have to look forward to, which will take it up. So I would like you to start with whichever direction you want from the north.
जनशंकर, I think शुरुआत हम करते हैं नॉर्दर्न बॉर्डर्स से। मगर उससे पहले मैं बता दूं कि नॉर्दर्न बॉर्डर्स आजकल बड़े फ्रीजिंग कंडीशन में है, और तभी मैं इस तरह की टोपी पहनकर और स्कार्फ पहनकर आपके साथ आज प्रोग्राम में शामिल हो रहा हूं, इसको सिंबलाइज करने के लिए कि नॉर्दर्न बॉर्डर्स की तरफ हमारा फोकस बहुत होता है और होना चाहिए। साथ में मैं मुबारकबाद देता हूं अपने आर्मी चीफ साहब को। इस साल की मीडिया कॉन्फ्रेंस कुछ ज्यादा ही अच्छी थी, मैं समझता हूं। उन्होंने बड़े कॉन्फिडेंस के साथ बातचीत की, सवाल भी बड़े अच्छे आए थे, और साथ ही एक चीज खास तौर पे थी कि उन्होंने बहुत चीजें एडमिट की, फॉल्ट्स एडमिट की अपनी, खास तौर पर रजौरी के बारे में, इंडो म्यांमार बॉर्डर के बारे में, जो आम तौर पे नहीं है। गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया के अंदर आप देखें तो आर्मी चीफ को तो छोड़िए और कोई एडमिट नहीं करता है आसानी से। मगर मेरा तजुर्बा यह है कि अगर आप पब्लिकली एडमिट करिए कि ये हमारी कमजोरी है, तो अपने आप पर एक भार आता है जिससे एक जवाबदारी आती है, जिससे कि यू देन ट्राई एंड ओवरकम दैट प्रॉब्लम। और मैं समझता हूं कि बड़े कूलली उन्होंने ये सब सवाल इस दफे लिए। जहां तक नॉर्दर्न बॉर्डर्स है, बेसिकली लद्दाख, हमारी इस वक्त लद्दाख सेंट्रिक ज्यादा है, उत्तराखंड लद्दाख ज्यादा सेंट्रिक ज्यादा हमारी अप्रोच है। और 2020 अप्रैल मई 2020 के बाद, उसके बाद गलवान 15-16 जून गलवान के इंसिडेंट के बाद एक फ्रीज तरीका का आ गया था इस पूरे लाइन ऑफ एक्चुअल कंट्रोल पे। 50-60 हजार ट्रूप्स दोनों साइड ने वहां पर लगा दिए थे एक मिरर डिप्लॉयमेंट के तौर पे। और तब से उसी स्थिति में, स्टैटिक इन दैट सिचुएशन, वी हैव बीन स्टक देयर। कुछ ऊपर नीचे हुआ है लद्दाख में, खास तौर पे देयर बीन अ लिटिल बिट ऑफ गिव एंड टेक। 19 दफे या 20 दफे शायद कोर कमांडर्स मिले हैं, कुछ इंप्लीमेंटेशन हुआ है ऑन ग्राउंड, बट नॉट मच हैज चेंज्ड। मेरा देखना इसका इस तरीके से है कि चाइना ने, देखिए चीन ने आपको एक दफे कोवर्स किया है, कोर्शन करने की कोशिश की है। जरूरी नहीं कि आप कोर्स हुए हैं, आपने भी जवाब में उनके डिप्लॉयमेंट वहां पर उस तरह का किया है और डेमोन्स्ट्रेट किया है, ना कि चीन को, पूरी दुनिया को, कि भारत जो है वो कमजोर नहीं है किसी तरीके से। और हमने प्रोजेक्शन किया है कि वी आर केपेबल ऑफ डिफेंडिंग आवर इंटरेस्ट कंप्लीटली। इस वक्त मैं समझता हूं ज्यादा बदलेगा नहीं। ये साल 2024 ऐसा है, 25 शायद वो भी ऐसा हो, जबकि थिंग्स आर मूविंग स्लोली इंटरनेशनली। जब तक जियोपॉलिटिकल एनवायरनमेंट और सिचुएशन बदलेगी नहीं ज्यादा, तब तक मैं नहीं समझता हूं कोई बदलाव आएगा इस इलाके में। तो ये स्थिति जो है, इस तरह की जो है, आई बॉल टू आई बॉल, LAC कन्वर्टेड टू LOC जो है, तकरीबन चलती रहेगी। क्योंकि इजराइल हमास वॉर की तरफ बहुत फोकस है, वहां यूक्रेन की वॉर के ऊपर बहुत फोकस है। कोई किसी चीज को बिगाड़ना नहीं चाहता, चीन नहीं बिगाड़ना चाहेगा इस वक्त। और मैं समझता हूं देखो, ये बड़ा अच्छा अपॉर्चुन मोमेंट है जब भारत को पूरी तैयारी करनी चाहिए। वी शुड स्ट्रेंथन आवरसेल्व्स टू द हिल्ट टू मेक श्योर कि हम इतनी ताकतवर हम बन जाएं कि चीन जो है 2 दफे 3 दफे 10 दफे सोचे कि इससे पहले कि वो कोई आंख दिखा सकता है भारत को।
सर, जो आपने बोला वो बिल्कुल सही बोला है, बट आई विल ड्रॉ योर अटेंशन कि उन्होंने, चीफ ऑफ आर्मी स्टाफ ने बोला, वेयर द सिचुएशन इज स्टेबल इट इज ऑल्सो सेंसिटिव। लेट मी हाईलाइट इट। अभी अगर आप देखेंगे तो चाइना का हालत, अंदरूनी हालत प्रॉब्लम में है, और वो अभी तक ताइवान को मिलिटरली वो पकड़ नहीं सकते। बिल्कुल उनका तैयारी नहीं है, ये सबको पता है। और एक और तरीक ये है कि वो फिलीपींस में भी कुछ फेस ऑफ्स हो रहे हैं इन इन साउथ चाइना सी। इस हालत में he is not able to make headway there. Will he attempt something small here? मैं ये नहीं बोल रहा हूँ कि बहुत बड़ा, right? The point is, why will he do something? Let me explain, and I would like your thinking on this. क्योंकि अगर कुछ छोटा मोटा पत्थर भी कब्जा कर ले हमारा साइड ऑफ द LAC, तो he can impose reputational costs on us, कि हमारा जो ये नेशन है, ये ग्लोबल पावर बनना चाहता है, राइज करना चाहता है, देखिए थोड़ा बहुत डिफेंड नहीं कर सकते हम, जहां हमें चाहिए कुछ हम कर सकते हैं। So is there a chance? I think when the chief of army staff spoke of sensitivity, I think this is what he was probably hinting at. Your views?
He was definitely alluding to this. There's no doubt about it. जब देखिए, जब दो फौजें अगर मुद्दतों से लगी हैं, फॉर अ लॉन्ग टाइम, इफ दे हैव बीन ऑन द लाइन ऑफ कंट्रोल, आई टू आई बॉल, वो जो स्पार्क के साथ वो एकदम से भड़कपन नहीं आता है। मगर ये जो LAC में हो रहा है इस वक्त, दिस इज a न्यू सिचुएशन which came about in 2020 as we are aware। 3-4 साल हुए हैं जिसमें भारत और चीन जो है दोनों अब आई बॉल कॉन्टैक्ट में है, खासतौर पर लद्दाख में जिस तरह से अभी डिप्लॉयमेंट है। मैं आपके साथ बिल्कुल सहमत हूं कि चीन के अंदर अंदरूनी हालत जो है जरा अनस्टेबल सी है इस वक्त। और उसका जो इंटेंट है, ओवरऑल इंटेंट है ऑफ पावर प्रोजेक्शन एक्सेट्रा, वो नहीं हो पा रहा है। यहां तक कि आप देखें कि उसके एफर्ट्स जो मिडिल ईस्ट में भी हुए थे, ईरान और सऊदी अरेबिया के बीच में रैप्रोचमेंट लाने के लिए, वो भी तो कुछ हद तक उसके ऊपर भी पानी फिर रहा है इस वक्त। तो चाइना इज फीलिंग अ लिटिल पीव्ड, देयर इज नो डाउट अबाउट इट। क्या ये जो चीज के ऊपर जिस तरह से वो पीव हो रहा है, क्या वो ट्रांसलेट हो जाएगा इनटू अ स्मॉल स्केल टैक्टिकल मिसएडवेंचर on the line of actual control to draw attention, to gain some brownie points for the internal situation within China, uh, also to take away attention from some other parts of the world? क्या ये हो सकता है? एक्सीडेंटली तो बेशक हो सकता है। एक्सीडेंटली तो कोई भी चीज जो है, व्हेन यू आर एन आई बॉल टू आई बॉल कॉन्टैक्ट, कोई भी चीज हो सकती है। डेलिबरेटली की बात है। अब डेलिबरेटली की जब बात हम करते हैं तो इसमें हमें डिबेट करना पड़ेगा, क्या चाइना देख रहा है दो लड़ाइयां जो चल रही हैं दुनिया में इस वक्त, यूक्रेन में रशिया यूक्रेन की लड़ाई चल रही है, जहां रशिया की का पावर, ओवरऑल कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव नेशनल पावर को देखकर कोई हेडवे इतना ज्यादा नहीं बन पाया है। हालांकि ये डिबेटेबल है कि क्या स्थिति एक्चुअली है, मगर वो हेडवे जो वो सोच रहे थे वो नहीं बन पाया है। इजराइल हमास वॉर के अंदर सब सोच रहे थे कि इजराइल जो है वो 3.5 लाख ट्रूप्स को मोबिलाइज करने के बाद चढ़ जाएगा गाजा स्ट्रिप के ऊपर और उसका तबाह कर देगा उसको पूरा। वो भी नहीं हो पाया है। टैक्टिकल विक्ट्री टू स्ट्रेटेजिक विक्ट्री दोनों जगहों पर नहीं हो पाई है। क्या इसके कोई लेसन वो लर्न कर रहा है चीन? मैं समझता हूं कि चीन भी कुछ हद तक, चाइना हैज गॉट अ इंटेलेक्चुअल capacity to study all these wars and conflicts around the world at any time. National Defense University में उनके पूरे वक्त ये स्टडीज एनालिसिस होती रहती हैं, तो उसके लेसन वो जरूर सीखेगा। मगर आई थिंक जो आपका पॉइंट है बिल्कुल सही है, और आर्मी चीफ ने भी जो समझा है वो भी सही है कि देखिए, ऐसी स्थिति में 2020 में भी जब जब पैंडेमिक आया था और दुनिया की उंगलियां उठ रही थी चीन के ऊपर, तो चीन ने वुल्फ वॉरियर डिप्लोमेसी को इस्तेमाल करके कुछ जगहों पर, हांगकांग में, ऑस्ट्रेलिया के साथ और खास तौर पे इंडिया के ऊपर हावी होने की कोशिश की थी। Did they succeed completely? That's a thing, the separate issue which we can discuss. मगर अगर उस हालत को देखें तो चीन दोबारा बेशक वो कर सकता है, एंड वी शुड नॉट रूल इट आउट, डेफिनेटली नॉट रूल इट आउट। तो इसलिए 50-60 हजार ट्रूप्स जिस तरह से डिप्लॉयड हैं इस वक्त, वैसे लगे रहने चाहिए। मगर वी शुड बी वेरी सेंसिटिव। मैं समझता हूं कि हमारे जो ऑपरेशनल और टैक्टिकल लेवल कमांडर्स हैं, उनको उनके ब्रीफ बहुत क्लियर होने चाहिए। This is the time when we do not want unnecessary tensions on the border, and converting of something which is very, very sub-tactical to something strategic must not happen overnight. ये basic precautions हमको लेने चाहिए. That does not mean that India is afraid, but India is not looking for problems. Our aim is very clear. We are a $3.7 trillion economy today. We are looking at $5 and $10 trillion economy and beyond. We are looking at 2047. The national aim is very clear. We need not get stuck, need not get ourselves stuck in these tactical battles at any time in the near future.
Yeah, I think so, sir. I also think so. And if we do get into something like this, our reaction should be so that, like what happened in Yangtze, we gave the solid, nice beating to the Chinese and sent them back. And what I want to convey, and I think you could also reinforce it, is being defensive doesn't mean that you're not aggressive.
Absolutely.
Right? And that you can't do what you're supposed to do. And I think we need to convey a lot of aggression through our defensive tactics overall, and take away all the sensitivity of this equation out of the story.
आपने ये बहुत अच्छा पॉइंट दिया इसका, कि your desire to keep your border stable and peaceful does not translate into anything defensive. Defensive जरूर आप, मतलब you got a strong defensive posture which should be there, but your approach cannot be defensive. आपको पूरे वक्त ये रखना पड़ेगा, देखिए we are huge large nations, You are a larger nation today, there's no doubt about it. There's an asymmetric situation between us in terms of our economies and overall capability, right? But respect the fact that India is rising, and we don't think that India will take anything lying down as far as its pride, honor and pride as a nation is concerned. I think ये आज के भारत पे में ये चीज खास तौर पे इसके ऊपर बहुत फोकस और बहुत एम्फेसिस है, and we should learn how to translate that political idea into a military idea,
Military
because
idea. Yeah, I
नीचे
think,
नीचे के लेवल पे इसको समझने की जरूरत है बहुत ज्यादा.
yeah. So with this, let's turn to the West and we'll talk about Pakistan. Uh, one thing which was जो हमारा chief ने, he was quite silent on the Pakistan capability. Not too much he spoke, but he did say कि रजौरी और पुंछ के बारे में he expressed concern. So how do you assess that situation on our Western front?
देखिए Jan Shankar, we have done a whole program on this once, and we are
Yeah, we
looking
have
to a
done.
lot
We
of
have.
things together on this. I think much of what the chief spoke, actually we have discussed it even at that time, and I've written extensively about it in lots of national print media. I don't think there's much of a difference between what he spoke and what we perceive and what we feel. What I liked about it was the fact that he stated, first of all, that it is Pakistan which is trying to make a comeback, and is trying to make its relevance felt all over again. This is exactly what we spoke. We said it's attempting to try and make a comeback. It's not finding the situation very conducive in the valley at the moment. Deployment bhi aisa hai. Attitude of the locals has also changed very greatly after 5th of August and progressively after 5th of August 2019. मगर ये जो बेल्ट है पीर पंजाल की, ये बड़ी टेरेन वाइज, कवर वाइज, demography and ethnicity wise, etc., it somehow is offering an opportunity to Pakistan. Perhaps a huge amount of money has come in, or whatever it is, but efforts at infiltration probably have succeeded, and high quality terrorists, well trained terrorists, who I personally feel, are really not terrorists who are acting terrorists, essentially regulars of the Pakistan army who have come in here. What they are attempting to do is कि basically अपनी relevance दिखाना, पाकिस्तान की relevance दोबारा बनाना. नहीं तो 32 साल का जो इन्वेस्टमेंट पाकिस्तान ने किया है उस पर पानी फिर जाएगा. ये बेसिकली है मैसेज जो जा रहा है इस तरह की एक्टिविटीज के साथ. हम क्यों सक्सेसफुल नहीं है इसको काउंटर करने में? मैं समझता हूं कि ये सब पॉइंट तो ठीक है कि थोड़ा रीडिप्लॉयमेंट हो गया है, कुछ लोग लद्दाख बॉर्डर पे कुछ फॉर्मेशंस चले गए, एटसेट्रा. दिस इज नॉट सफिशिएंट रीजन. आई थिंक जो उन्होंने सही कहा और एडमिट भी किया कि वी हैव टू रीथिंक एंड रिव्यू लॉट्स ऑफ प्रोसीजर्स, आइडियाज, डिप्लॉयमेंट्स, एटसेट्रा. दैट इज एब्सोल्युटली करेक्ट. मैं समझता हूं कि ऐसा कोई सोल्यूशन नहीं है जो हमें कहीं से ढूंढ कर निकाल के लाना है. ऑल सॉल्यूशंस आर विद इन द आर्मी. आर्मी को मालूम है, उनको तजुर्बा है, वो अगर छानबीन करे पिछले 32 साल की, उनको फेज वाइज दिखेगा कि कहां पर उन्होंने क्या किया था और क्या चीज बिल्कुल सही की थी. उसी से निकलकर आएंगे इसके सॉल्यूशन. अभी एक नई कमांड स्ट्रक्चर, अभी न्यू कमांड हैज टेकन ओवर इन द सेंस वी हैव अ न्यू कोर कमांडर, जनरल सचदेवा, हु इज फ्रॉम माय यूनिट हिमसेल्फ, एंड I think this is a time to review the basic procedures. और मैं समझता हूं, जो मैं हर दफे दुनिया में याद रखा है मैंने, maybe more from the mechanized forces days, is an issue called back to basics. आप अगर अपने बेसिक्स को नहीं भूलें, आपको बताया है कि 3 गाड़ी का कॉन्वॉय जाएगा, क्यूआरटी जाएगी, डिस्टेंस बिटवीन व्हीकल्स विल बी एटलीस्ट 100 मीटर्स. उसके अंदर किस तरह से आपके पास हथियार होंगे, किस तरह से आप रिस्पॉन्ड करेंगे, क्या ड्रिल्स होंगी. मैं इंडियन आर्मी को बेसिक ड्रिल्स नहीं सिखा रहा हूं, मैं समझा रहा हूं सिर्फ आर्मी को कि आप ही के अंदर ये सॉल्यूशन है, किसी को बाहर से लाने की जरूरत नहीं है इसको आपको समझाने के लिए. एंड देयरफॉर दैट इज व्हाट यू हैव टू रिव्यू एंड दैट इज व्हाट यू हैव टू रिटर्न टू.
I think that's a fair thing, sir. आपने जो बोला है, we have discussed this, and it's an iteration of what is happening and what will happen ahead. Now, one point which I'd like to say, आपने and which chief said, chief said the attitude of people of J&K is changing. Just today, I heard the GOC in Northern Command speaking to Nitin Gokhale. There also, the first opening talk of this, or the opening part of the dialogue, was about the attitude of the people of J&K, and he gave it examples also. So, what is one thing which has come out from both the GOC Northern Command and the chief is that they're very conscious of the fact that the attitude of the people has changed. They're also very conscious of the fact that the issue in Rajouri and Punch and that belt is a matter of concern. In fact, if you remember, even the GOC Northern Command उन्होंने भी बोला इस बारे में, और मेरे ख्याल में उन्होंने बड़ा क्लियर कर दिया कि वो सही कदम ले रहे हैं जिससे ये बात हल जाएगा. So I think we are in a fairly good position, and I think we are in a fairly
मैं एक चीज सिर्फ इसमें ऐड करूंगा आपके कि जो रक्षा मंत्री राजनाथ सिंह जी ने कहा और जाकर जो मैसेज दिया, ये कभी कभी हम भूल जाते हैं फौज के अंदर जब हम एंथुसियाज्म में आ जाते हैं, when we are seeking an operational success etc. आप अपनी हथबंदियां रखिए. This aspect of going to the people, winning hearts and minds cannot be forgotten. This is a basic doctrine जो इंडियन आर्मी ने मुद्दतों से फॉलो की है. I think ever since we've entered into Nagaland in 1956 or so, we have always followed this. This became formalized in 1997 with Operation Sadbhavna. आपने बड़ा जबरदस्त काम किया है हफलॉन्ग में, मुझे मालूम है. No, in Lower Assam and those areas. तो winning hearts and minds is something, you see, incidents हुए और उस इंसिडेंट्स के अंदर आप जितनी गुडविल आपकी पैदा हुई है इतने सालों से उसको आप खो दें because of some unnecessary tactical actions. That is something which we have to bring it down to the commanders. कि आप इसको नहीं भूल सकते हैं कि the people at the center of gravity of this situation here, and we need to always keep that in mind. कभी कभी हम tactical level पे कभी ये चीजें भूल जाते हैं.
I think that's a fair thing, sir. And I think overall, अगर आप देखेंगे, तो the Indian Army is in a good situation to ensure not only peace, also successful conduct of the elections as and when they happen. Because that's time bound, that has to happen by September as per Supreme Court ruling. I think everyone is aware of it, and I think people are working to that. So we'll leave J&K at that. We'll take the third point which he mentioned, which is, he expressed concern over the situation at the Indo-Myanmar border, and to that extent, Manipur and Mizoram also get included. So, Ved, how do you look at that whole scenario, sir?
देखिए, अमित जी साहब ने इसके ऊपर काफी टिप्पणी की है और उन्होंने दो पहलू इसके रखे. एक तो इंटरनल सिचुएशन जो मणिपुर में है, जिसमें खासतौर पे उन्होंने उसके ऊपर बड़ा एम्फेसिस किया कि जो हथियार खोए गए थे, जो सिविल पुलिस की आर्मरी से लूटे गए थे हथियार, तकरीबन 5,000 हथियार से ज्यादा जो लूटे गए थे, उसके 30% हथियार भी अभी तक रिकवर नहीं हुए हैं. तो मतलब वेपन्स आर इन द एनवायरनमेंट, नॉट टू से दैट वेपन्स इज द ओनली थिंग. वेपन्स तो म्यांमार बॉर्डर से भी आ सकते हैं और आ भी रहे हैं इस तरह से. मगर overall, he did allude to the fact that this is a very, very sensitive matter. The Assam Rifles, 46 units, perhaps insufficient to handle this kind of a thing. 20 units are at the moment on the border guarding role, the border sealing role as such. Balance of the units are in CI or CT operations, whatever one wants to call it. But I think the Assam Rifles makes a major difference here. You have worked extensively with the Assam Rifles.
Yes, sir.
आप तो जानते हैं कि उनकी काबिलियत बहुत ज्यादा है. और जो लोग नहीं जानते असम राइफल्स को, याद रखिए असम राइफल्स का काडर अपना काडर है, उनके जवान का काडर जो है और ऑफिसर्स का भी छोटे, कुछ हद तक उनका छोटा एक ऑफिसर काडर भी होता है, मगर ज्यादातर मैनिंग जो है और उसके जो कमांड एलिमेंट्स होते हैं वो रेगुलर इंडियन आर्मी से आते हैं. तो इसलिए असम राइफल्स का एक बड़ा मिलिट्री ओरिएंटेशन होता है. जो जब वो काउंटर इंसर्जेंसी ऑपरेशंस करते हैं इस तरीके, they do it with a complete military orientation, which is I'm not saying anyone else does not do it with a military orientation, but वो खास तौर पे करते हैं. So more and more Assam Rifles units, if they are there, they can make a huge difference. And this is where I feel this is a time when we need to look at, perhaps if there are forces, units being raised in different forces, this is the time to look at the Northeast and say, perhaps the time has come and we need to have some more Assam Rifle units to be raised for this particular purpose. Second thing is about the border. अब बॉर्डर के थ्रू आप हमको सबको मालूम है कि क्या हो रहा है म्यांमार में. हमको मालूम है कि इंटरनल स्टेबिलिटी वहां क्या है. दिस अ वर्चुअल सिविल वॉर. वहां से 400-450 उनके खुद के लोग, खुद के आर्मी वाले जो हैं, वो वहां से भागकर हमारे बॉर्डर्स के अंदर आ गए हैं. सुना है कि अब सब वापस चले गए हैं, मगर ऑल द टाइम दिस इज हैपनिंग एंड दिस एड्स टू द कंफ्यूजन. ये ज्यादा सिचुएशन को और सेंसिटिव बनाता है. ना ही आप अब इंटरनल सिचुएशन देख रहे हैं, आप बॉर्डर को देख रहे हैं और बॉर्डर के उस पार भी देख रहे हैं. तीनों चीजों को देख रहे हैं. दिस इज अ वेरी वेरी डिफिकल्ट कॉल फॉर लोकल कमांडर्स ऑन द स्पॉट. आई सल्यूट the IGR South और DG Assam Rifles, GOC 3 Corps, ये जितने वहां पर काम कर रहे हैं इस तरह से, मैं समझता हूँ जितनी चुनौतियां ये फेस कर रहे हैं पूरे भारत में कोई शायद नहीं इस वक्त फेस कर रहा है. दूसरा, ये फ्री मूवमेंट जो रेजीम है FMR, दिस इज बीन स्पोकन अबाउट. चीफ ने भी बात की है इसके ऊपर. ये 16 किलोमीटर का जो एरिया होता है जिसमें आपको पासपोर्ट, वीजा की जरूरत नहीं है, and people can move freely across the borders on with basic permits. इसकी वजह से एक पोरोसिटी होती है बॉर्डर की, और उसके वजह से जब प्रेशर यहां से पड़ता है इनके ऊपर, लोगों के ऊपर, द एंटी नेशनल एलिमेंट्स वो उस तरफ भागते हैं. जो उधर नहीं प्रेशर पड़ता है तो इधर भागते हैं. साथ में लॉट्स ऑफ स्मगलिंग टेक्स प्लेस, लॉट्स ऑफ कॉन्ट्राबैंड कम्स इन हियर एंड देयर. तो आप अगर देखिए मणिपुर का जो उसकी जो स्थिति है इस वक्त, हर पहलू से नेगेटिव है, हर पहलू से नेगेटिव है. और मैं नहीं समझता हूं इलेक्शंस तक इस स्थिति को बदलने में कुछ ज्यादा एफर्ट्स लग पाएंगी, क्योंकि वी अंडरस्टैंड इन डेमोक्रेसी कि ये प्रॉब्लम्स होंगे जब इलेक्शन की पीरियड आता है. बट आई होप कि इस साल में, इस इलेक्शंस के बाद, दिस इशू विल बी टेकन बाय द थ्रोट एंड वी नीड टू एड्रेस. इस पूरी चीज को एड्रेस करना पड़ेगा.
I agree with you completely.
The army chief is very correctly. He has given his full concern for this area.
I completely agree with you, sir. And यहाँ भी मैं बताना चाहता हूँ कि अगर आप, if you went back 3-4 months back, there were a lot of questions raised on the Assam Rifles. उंगलियां उठी Assam Rifles के ऊपर कि वो एक पक्ष में हैं और they're not balanced, they're not all that. But अगर बाद में जो हुए हैं वहाँ एक्शन हुआ है, you see that the Assam Rifles has actually come, shown to people that it is for the people of Manipur, not for a particular tribe or not for a community or not for an ethnic caste or creed. That, I think Assam Rifle has done a fantastic job. Though the chief didn't mention it in that manner, but implicit in the whole thing was that Army and Assam Rifles, when given a task, do it to the best of their capability in the best interest of the nation. I think that covered a whole lot of things. And we also have to understand, like you said, the situation is still unstable to a large degree because every second day, अगर आप न्यूज़पेपर खोलोगे तो ये पता चलता है कि ये मणिपुर पुलिस एक जगह कहीं गया, वहाँ एम्बुश हो गया. और militants, we don't know which side the militants are, but they're firing. एंड मणिपुर में आपने ये बोला कि इंटरनल प्रॉब्लम है, ऑन द बॉर्डर पोरोसिटी का प्रॉब्लम है, उस पार भी प्रॉब्लम है, 3 तरीका का प्रॉब्लम है. आई लाइक टू ऐड वन मोर, क्योंकि वहां का ड्रग्स का प्रॉब्लम है. अगर आप विश्लेषण करोगे तो द रेबल वॉर इज ऑल अबाउट ड्रग्स एंड इट इज ऑल द ड्रग इकोनॉमी विच इज ऑलमोस्ट क्लोज टू $25 billion. People are actually fighting a tough battle, and as late as today morning, I read a news article which says China is mediating between the junta and the rebels to come to peace. So they are actually, right. So there is a problem, and the problem is actually not on our side. The problem is on Shan state, which is on the other side. That is why China has got actively involved. But spillover तो होगा ही. तो ये problems, I think, will continue, and we have to be just alert to handle the situation properly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll leave that, sir. I think we are in the situation. अगर आप देखेंगे सब कि either in the northern border or on our western border or along in Rajouri Punch areas which is sensitive or along the Indo-Myanmar border, Indian Army is under complete control of the situation. Which sir, अगर आप देखो 5-6 साल या 10 साल पहले जब हम कर्नल ब्रिगेडियर थे और तब से अभी का स्थिति कितना बदल गया है एंड
बिल्कुल, देयर इज नो डाउट. मैंने खुद 15
एंड
कोर को कमांड किया एट द हाइट ऑफ टेंशन यू सॉ एट दैट टाइम.
या
I still remember commanding 19 day when yes, an active infiltration going on all the time. पीछे हमारे stone throwing शुरू हो गई थी उन दोनों में, and that was taking up all our time. So compared to those times, आजकल तो बहुत stable. मैं समझता हूँ borders भी बहुत stable है और internally also there is a lot of stability.
internally be we are quite stable. So now the army chief spoke of technology also, and a lot of technological improvements are happening. One thing which he spoke actually it gladdened my heart. मैं आपसे शेयर करना चाहता हूँ और सबसे शेयर करना चाहता हूँ. He spoke of a mobile system specially tailored for the army being introduced. And I'd like to say that this is probably the first time a full system is being, inducted into the armed forces, completely designed and developed by IIT Madras academia. And this will only grow. And I think this is a very positive development technologically because your homegrown technology is now being inducted into the system. And I think more and more, as we are facing an AI revolution, we're also facing a social media revolution. So technology of this nature, which is tomorrow's, where there's going to be a whole lot of narrative wars and information wars, I think we need to be a little more focused on Atmanirbharta and how to exploit such small things into big events of induction
Let
of
me
technology.
endorse
Yeah,
what you're saying. I want to add my voice to that. जहां तक आईआईटी मद्रास का सवाल है, मुझे मालूम है कि नेशनल डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट अथॉरिटी में जब भी हमें कोई टेक्नोलॉजिकल इशू की चैलेंज आती है, वी ऑलवेज लाइक टू गो बैक टू आईआईटी मद्रास एंड you'll be surprised on all kinds of things. Earthquakes के ऊपर, for example, IIT Madras and Chennai not even in the earthquake zone. मगर जिस तरह का रिसर्च वहां पर है, जिस तरह की रिसर्च की काबिलियत वहां पर है, वो बहुत कम जगहों पर है. आई वुड से द आईआईटी कल्चर एंड आईआईटी नेटवर्क्स के अंदर बहुत चीजें होती हैं, पर आईआईटी मद्रास के साथ हमारा बहुत ज्यादा काम होता है. And that is what gladdens my heart, because I feel that every time we go back to them with a challenge, they have always got solutions. कोई ना कोई solution के साथ वो जरूर आते हैं. So I fully endorse your sentiments.
so this is something which is very positive because for the first time we are using our homegrown technology for a complete induction as a system into the army. And for all those people who believe that the Indian Army technology induction nahi hota, we are behind the curve. I think it settles a lot of things, and it's a harbinger of things to come. And I can assure you that at least from IIT Madras, we are going to do many more things going ahead. But we leave that. So we're going to talk of the last issue. The chief spoke of jointness quite a bit with the other services. He was a little subdued on theaterization. Fine, things are going well. But मैं एक सवाल पूछना चाहता हूँ. It's not only सवाल, it's some kind of a thought process which ये मेरे दिमाग में चल रहा है. हम बहुत सालों से we've been speaking of 2.5 front war. अगर आप देखेंगे तो ये जो हाफ फ्रंट है थोड़ा कम हो गया. इसमें दो राय नहीं है because like you keep saying, J&K is almost in the terminal phase of insurgency, that cycle. Pakistan, what it can do what it wants. Even in the northeast, it's more political than insurgency. So, and spillover from Myanmar. So that also is under control from earlier. And to a large extent, this two fronts we thought were LC and LOC oriented. in the mountains. The collusivity will come between China and Pakistan on the mountains. But मेरा ये अंदाज ये है कि ये शिफ्ट हो रहा है. क्यों? अगर आप देखेंगे पाकिस्तान, लेट्स फोकस ऑन पाकिस्तान. पाकिस्तान जो है पिछले 5-6 महीने जब से ये नया चीफ आया है, it's been carrying out exercises with a lot of countries like Turkey, China, Russia, Iran, and all these countries. These exercises have been in air, land forces, significantly in the sea, especially North Arabian Ocean. And the navies are taking part in this exercises. और तो और हम सोचते रहते हैं कि पाकिस्तान का इकोनॉमी खत्म हो गया वगैरह वगैरह वगैरह, कि इट इज नो मोर अ कन्वेंशनल थ्रेट. बट अगर इनका वेपन एक्विजिशन अगर हम देखेंगे तो वो उसमें कोई रुकावट नहीं है. इनफैक्ट रुकावट नहीं, बढ़ गया है. दे आर गोइंग इन फॉर टैंक्स, चाइनीज टैंक्स, दे गोइंग इन फॉर चाइनीज एयरक्राफ्ट. टुडे आई रेड दे गोइंग इन फॉर इटालियन एयर डिफेंस सिस्टम्स. And of course, their navy is almost Chinese equipped. So, अगर आप देखेंगे तो उनका जो conventional capability has not reduced. It has probably increased. And earlier, the land-centric approach of Pakistan is now shifting to, a, a wider domain, more domains than to encompass land, air, and sea. Do you think it's time for us to reframe or rephrase or reorient this 2.5 front story?
Wow, this is a very good. I'm glad you're asking me this question. कि मेरे दिमाग में तो खलबली रहती है हर वक्त, थिंकिंग अबाउट दिस ऑल द टाइम. और मैं सोचता हूं कि बहुत दफे हम शायद अप्रिशिएट नहीं करते हैं अपने दुश्मनों को, कभी अप्रिशिएट नहीं करते हैं. Sometimes it's good to appreciate your adversary and understand that he too is thinking. आप में सिर्फ खुदा ने सिर्फ हमको नहीं दिमाग दिया है सोचने का दिमाग जो है वो उसको भी दिया है. एंड ही इज थिंकिंग. एक तो ही इज स्मॉलर देन अस, ही इज वीकर देन अस, हिज इकोनॉमी इज मच स्मॉलर. देयर इज एन एसिमेट्रिक सिचुएशन बिटवीन पाकिस्तान एंड इंडिया. जब वो एसिमेट्रिक सिचुएशन होती है तो जो छोटा होता है वो ही आउटपेसेस द सुपीरियर नेशन इन टर्म्स ऑफ थिंकिंग. अगर आप देखें, हिस्टोरिकली देखें अगर आप, तो जो 89 में उन्होंने शुरू किया प्रॉक्सी वॉर, हमने इसके बारे में सोचा भी नहीं था उस टाइम. कभी हमारी थिंकिंग कन्वेंशनल थी. लड़ाई होगी, पार की लड़ाई होगी, टैंकों की होगी, गनों की होगी. ये कभी नहीं सोचा था कि इस तरह
हुआ ही नहीं.
हजारों टेररिस्ट भेजकर इस तरह से 32 साल से हमें पैरालाइज करके रखा हुआ था वहां पर इस तरीके से. सो यू हैव टू गिव हिम हिज ड्यू and understand that he is thinking all the time. Bajwa was a thinker. I hope Jan Bajwa hears what I'm saying. He was a thinker. उन्होंने 2-3 दफे इस्लामाबाद डायलॉग में भी बोला, बताया कि देखो ultimately the future lies in peace with India. ठीक है. No one somehow took it too seriously, I think. Although at the moment Asim Munir, I think, who has so far really not shown his colors. We haven't seen him strategically so far. नहीं देखा हमने. उन्होंने कोई खास ऐसे कोई जबरदस्त चीजें नहीं बात की हैं किसी नेशनल डिफेंस यूनिवर्सिटी में जाकर, इधर उधर जाकर. मगर ऑब्वियसली कोई एक सोच विचार हो रहा है, चल रहा है वहां पर, और उनके एक्शन से ये काफी साबित हो जाता है that there is a change taking place. दुनिया में चेंज हो रहा है. ऑब्वियसली वी शुड एक्सपेक्ट कि हमारे एडवर्सरीज के अंदर भी चेंज होगा. ये 2.5 फ्रंट बिजनेस जो है अब तक चल सकता था. अब जो है शायद इसकी जो अहमियत है विल प्रोबेबली स्टार्ट डाइल्यूटिंग. एंड यू विल सी पाकिस्तान, एंड यू आर वेरी करेक्ट इन योर ऑब्जर्वेशन, जिस तरह से उनकी एक्टिविटीज चल रही है. इट सीम्स के दुनिया में और किसी चीज के लिए पैसा नहीं है उनके पास, मगर डिफेंस के लिए है, एक्विजिशन के लिए है, ट्रेनिंग के लिए है. इन चीजों के ऊपर बहुत पैसा खर्च करते हैं, ऐसा कुछ नहीं हुआ है. ठीक, क्या कोई पैरेलल ड्रग इकोनॉमी चलाई हुई है, कोई और क्या चलाया हुआ है, कहां से पैसा आता है, दिस आई कैन नॉट फैथम समहाउ, मगर वो चला रहे हैं। और मैं आपको ये भी बता दूं कि हम में एक बहुत कन्वेंशनल सोच विचार होता है कि पाकिस्तान और सो सो देश जो हैं दुश्मन हैं, इनके इनके रिलेशनशिप भी नहीं है, इनकी एम्बेसी भी नहीं है वहां पर, तो इनके साथ इनकी कोई रिलेशनशिप नहीं होगी। मैं कह सकता हूं कि पाकिस्तान की इजराइल के साथ बहुत मजबूत रिलेशनशिप है। मैं गया हूं इजराइल और वहां मैंने देखा है कि टेल अवीव यूनिवर्सिटी में ज्यादा स्टूडेंट पाकिस्तान के हैं बनस्बत भारत के। ठीक है, सो देयर आर लॉट्स एंड लॉट्स ऑफ थिंग्स व्हिच आर आउट ऑफ ग्लेयर, किसी के फोकस में नहीं आती हैं ये चीजें। सो what you are actually initiating is a very fine thought process कि देखो, पाकिस्तान can actually punch much above his weight if it wishes to through collaboration. It can collaborate with a lot of nations. You must not forget Pakistan's basic desire, flag bearer of the Islamic community, the Islamic
world.
world. पूरे उम्मा का they think that they are the flag bearers finally. क्योंकि इकोनॉमी नहीं थी उनके पास, तो उसके वजह से थोड़ा उनको पीछे हटना पड़ा। अगर कल 10 साल 15 साल 20 साल के अंदर इकोनॉमिकली पाकिस्तान कैन रिवाइव, सिमेट्री भारत के साथ तो रहेगी, मगर इफ दे कैन रिवाइव टू हायर लेवल्स ऑफ इकोनॉमी, यू कैन इमेजिन व्हाट पाकिस्तान's capability will be. So we should be looking at this entire thing quite differently. When we do this thought process, खुले दिल के साथ, खुले मन के साथ, academically, it should not be a purely internal Indian army exercise or Indian armed forces exercise of theaterization and theater threats, etc. This has to be worked out with academia. It has to be worked out with lots of intelligence people जिनको तजुर्बा है इसका, और इस तरीके के लोग internationally also to discern. This is a thing in progress. At no point जो है आप हम उंगली लगा कर कह सकते हैं कि ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट में आज ये काबिलियत है और कल ये काबिलियत है. दिस इज समथिंग विच इज वर्क इन प्रोग्रेस. ये चलता रहेगा और हमें 80% 70% वी शुड एम कि इसके बारे में हमको मालूम है इतना. 100% आपको कभी नहीं मालूम होगा. सो आई एम सॉरी, मेरा जवाब जरा थोड़ा वेग सा रहा है, मगर आई वॉन्ट टू अलूड टू दिस एस्पेक्ट कि यू कांट बी स्टैटिक इन योर थिंकिंग. हम ये बहुत वक्त से, for far too long have you been talking of two front and 2.5 front, etc. We should start. There's a whole change shift taking place. It is coming into the northwest Arabian Sea area. You can northwest Indian Ocean जिसको कहते हैं, this whole area between, let's say, Madagascar के north में, heading right up to the Persian Gulf and coming down towards the Arabian Sea, towards Mumbai and the coast of Gujarat, etc. This is a swath of waters which is going to be very important, and all the peripheral areas around it equally important. And therefore this exercise cannot be just, as I said, conducted purely as a military exercise.
And not only that, sir, what I want to add कि अभी जो मालदीव्स का जो तख्ता पलट गया है, and it's openly now Maldives is with China, and Maldives orientation is more towards Turkey and also a lot towards Pakistan. I see this problem, this 2.5 front shifting from the hill sectors down to the oceans, and I think we need to start thinking of some out of the box situations coming up. For example, they could I mean, there is news report. I'm also being a bit vague. There are also news reports that the Houthis are allowing the Chinese to go by. Obviously, there's some kind of a linkage between the Chinese, Houthis, Iranians, and all that. And they're not targeting Chinese flagships or ships carrying Chinese cargo, right? So I think we need to look at this 2.5 front war a little widened and probably even multinationally if needed. And also, this is my view, sir, that so far we have spoken of Quad as some construct which is there for the Western Pacific. I've always been of the opinion that Quad has tremendous value here. अगर आप देखेंगे तो Red Sea में, other side of Red Sea, the US force and the UK forces are acting on this side. in the, of the Gulf of Aden, it is the Indian Navy which is acting. Already the Quad in some form is active here. So I think our whole situation has to rethink the larger issue and what's being presented on ground. And then we need to approach Pakistan in that manner, Pakistan and China and their collusivity in that manner.
There is no doubt.
I
See,
don't know whether I'm
Jan Shankar, you are making a lot of sense. Let me tell you this. I'll tell you. We have been talking about this for a long time. The continental versus the maritime. You see this
maritime.
debate which has been in India for very long. Admiral Raja Menon is the man who really initiated this debate many years ago. And his theory was that time that every year the Chinese will do something in the high Himalayas all along the line of actual control. कोई ना कोई चीज कहीं करेंगे जिससे कि हमारी अटेंशन वहां पर जाएगी. हमारी सोच विचार में सिर्फ जो है माउंटेन स्ट्राइक कोर होगी और कन्वेंशनल ऑपरेशंस होंगे. एंड China will merrily rule the maritime zone completely because they are dependent hugely on the energy routes, sea routes, and the container traffic which goes from here as far as their trade is concerned. That is now translating. That's now translating into something where now we're finding that importance coming up where everyone is looking at this particular zone. कि दुनिया का ट्रैफिक जाता है यहाँ से. The Houthis have actually made us open our eyes to it. ये जो सुएज कैनाल से लेकर और स्ट्रेट्स ऑफ मलाका तक का इलाका है, हाउ क्रूशियल इट इज. Maldives going from us, although I personally feel it is a temporary thing, it's not something.
Yeah, that's okay, sir. But it's there.
ये
The situation is
situations,
there.
but ये situations बहुत tactical होती हैं. ये कभी होता है, कभी जाता है. And Maldives cannot live without India. I'm very clear on that.
Yeah, that I agree with you.
But it has forced us to think. It has forced us to think. You can't afford to have this area under control and domination of the Chinese, of the PLA Navy. Fortunately, they are not at that level yet, right? And before they come to that levels, we should rise. Your idea of the Quad here, the Quad so far has emphasized looking at only the Pacific, leaving this portion of the Indo-Pacific only to India and the Indian Navy. Actually, we need to look at this more conjointly.
More, so I mean, again, you might think I'm going on a tangent, but I'll go there because that will highlight the importance of this area. For the past 2 months, I've been tracking the Panama canals. The Panama Canal is today dry. Maersk has started using a land bridge there. They're using a train to, shift goods from the Atlantic seaboard to the Pacific seaboard. And the Panama Canal is dry because there's a drought there for the past 1 year, and Lake Gatun doesn't have water to fill into the locks. And the tonnage which can go through Panama Canal has reduced. As a result, a lot of traffic, right, which was to go through Red Sea, was being diverted to Panama Canal, and it's not going through there also. So there is a huge supply chain disintegration taking place as we speak. It might not be felt, but we're going to see a huge inflation curve coming up in the economy. I'm giving you the larger picture. In that kind of scenario, this Red Sea channel and the Strait of Hormuz and the Gulf of Eden and the piracy and Houthis, backed by this combination of Pakistan, China, Iran, right, and Russia playing their geopolitical game, has issues for which we need to redefine our thinking of this 2.5 war. I mean, 2.5 front. The front is here. The second front is here. The one front, the northern front, the second front is here. And 0.5 might be point quarter, whatever it is. But we now have to start thinking very seriously about this. Maybe some other day, sir, we'll talk about this. If you have any questions on this, I mean, you have your views. You
I
could put it. Otherwise,
I would add one thing, and which we should also consider as one of our subjects of discussion in the future. You see, the complexity of all this gets even heightened when you look at the returning cycle of global terror. You see, when you look at it from the Red Sea up to Afghanistan and within Pakistan, this whole region is active at the moment, and is active with all kinds of fourth generation issues, fourth generation warfare kind of issues. And this is exactly, if you go back into the history and see how did the Al Qaeda rise, how did ISIS come about from the 80s to the 90s, 2014, you will realize this is exactly how it happened. And
Yeah.
when they get the space to do it, then some trigger is required. 9/11 gave the biggest trigger to global terror, right? And the end of global terror came with the Battle of Mosul, 2018. 17 years this whole thing lasted. This is another issue which is coming back and unrealizingly, and we need to understand it far, far better. Because along with all the fronts that we are talking about, this is going to be another front which is going to be very, very dangerous.
Fine, sir. We'll have another discussion with this. With maybe two, three more people. We'll talk about this. I think we've started with just the chief, but I think what the chief has said has led us to all this.
All
And I
this.
think I'm sure if what we have spoken today reaches the right people, they'll also start thinking. And I'm glad that you have triggered off something beyond what the chief spoke.
Exactly.
And to
That's the whole
me,
actually.
that
That's the whole purpose
that's
of
the
our
whole
discussion.
idea, a purpose of our discussion. I'll take some questions, sir. Though
Yeah.
we'll have to go back into this thing because they're not what we have actually spoken. A lot of questions have come from what the chief has spoken and what we
Yeah,
have
yeah, yeah.
discussed
Let's
about
let's
that.
let's let's let's
Right?
discuss that.
I will take that because I think that's part of the
Yeah.
story. Right. Okay. Yeah, this is. I'll not take this at this. I'll come back to him later. Yeah. Sam Keating says, sir, both of you have mentioned de-radicalization, but haven't suggested ways to do it. Please give some practical suggestions. Why can't we induct ex-servicemen as clerics? Their nationalism will help.
Sam Keating, first of all, I have not mentioned the word radicalization today. This question has come from somewhere else, from being triggered from a
Yeah,
previous
yeah.
discussion sometime. But nevertheless, that is not important. Uh, I first of all agree with you entirely on one aspect, that without the use of nationalist clerics, stable minded nationalist clerics, a de radicalization or a counter radicalization program is a non starter. If you're going to get the same radicals to come and start delivering talks or looking at different aspects, I'm sorry, that won't work. You have to identify the right people. Now, this is, I always quote this example of Singapore. Singapore is a nation which most people must be thinking, how can they ever have a Muslim problem, or they can't have an Islamic radicalization issue? They sensed it that they can have it, and therefore they started a system in conjunction with Malaysia and Indonesia, where they brought in 75 clerics, well-educated people, very secular minded, who set up some networks, and anyone who had doubts about the interpretation of the texts of the scriptures could go back to them to seek their guidance. And in Islam, how much interpretation you have to do of various verses of the scriptures and things like that. The moment you have a wrong cleric there, the moment you have someone who's guiding you incorrectly, you're only going to add to radicalization. So therefore, if you have the right people there who can guide you, who can give you the correct interpretation of the scriptures and text, to tell you that essentially the faith and the book both talk about secular values, you would have the right approach. This is exactly what has been done in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia to a great extent. Not so much Malaysia, but Indonesia definitely to a great extent. And I can assure you that these people are called the internet imams. Internet imams. They are readily available at all times to seek to guide young people who are being misled by a lot of other clerics, very, very highly radicalized clerics from time to time. Yeah.
Uh, he says, I have seen some aircraft registered as weather altering, while casual air tracking over West Asia. Do we also have such airplanes with weather altering capability?
Perhaps you
Uh,
are in a better position to speak about it.
yeah, that's why I took it, sir, because
Yeah.
the point, Partha, is that you alter weather by basically it is cloud seeding. Cloud seeding is done by sprinkling silver iodide. Okay, you put silver iodide in clouds when the cloud composition is of a particular level, and you get rain. Okay, that's how you alter the weather. You don't alter the weather, you don't cool down the weather when it is summer and all. That's not possible. It is marginal, right? And those cloud seeding aircraft have go on a pattern in when the clouds are there. So that is why they're registered as cloud seeding, because they have to do local flying, they have to do certain flying in clouds in a particular manner, and so that they don't get mistaken as enemy aircraft doing certain maneuvers. That is why they're shown as cloud seeding. Uh, as far as whether we have cloud seeding or weather altering kind of aircraft, any aircraft can be used for that. Any aircraft which can dump, do logistics or para dropping can be used. So you don't need. Only thing is that flight has to be nominated as a weather altering flight. That's all. It has to be logged in as that, and that's about all. Nothing more to it. Okay. Uh, okay. This is General Atasa. According to you, when will terror in Poonch and Rajouri be crushed this time? It's constantly there for 1.5, 1.5 years. How long people on ground there have to face park terror there now?
I think I alluded to
Yeah,
this
you have, sir.
but I will reiterate this fact. First of all, you can't lay down timelines in a thing like that. Is unfair to even expect that timelines are laid. But I do find that there is an attitudinal change in the army. There's a new command element which is now in position. They've taken the issue by the throat. The Raksha Mantri's visit there has been very transformational, where he has admitted to a lot of failures. Normally, we don't admit to these things, but he's been very, very transparent. We've admitted some failures. Only when you admit your failures and you know you've gone wrong in something do you start making amends. And I think 16 Core is now looking at a back to basics kind of a approach to this whole thing. The simpler you make it, the easier and better it will be. And that's exactly, I think, what 16 Core is doing at the moment. Uh, Coincidentally, yesterday, or I think day before yesterday, there was one more virtual ambush on an army convoy, and the CO of 39RR has got away, right? I think because of some better drills. But the fact remains that the presence is still very much there, and we have to continue following our basics. The National
Yeah,
Rifles is very good at its basics, and it must continue to search those basics. Every lesson is there already within the books of the army. You have to only go back a little bit, probably scratch a few brains of people who have been there in the past, and all the solutions will come back. No solutions are going to come from outside somewhere for this. But I'm very confident
yeah.
this year is going to be a very positive year.
Right, sir. Uh, Pratik has come to us from New York. Uh, he says Pak intelligence have interaction with other countries which are jealous of India's development. How will this affect India as they will have more intelligence?
See, no nation is going to curb its intelligence activities on the basis of friendship and lack of friendship, etc. Even if Pakistan and we are the best of friends today, tomorrow, let's say things change drastically and we are friends again. Do you think Pakistan is going to curb its intelligence activities? Do you think India will curb its intelligence activities? No nation worth its salt starts looking at intelligence and curbing its intelligence because there's a developing friendship. Let me tell you, as far as Indo US relations are concerned, the United States still treats India as an entity and make sure that on the intelligence front, nothing changes, right? There may be a lot of intelligence sharing between us, but they would always want to make sure that they continue to be able to have their fingers in different pies in India, understand the larger issues, right, at all times. No one wants to be outside this whole, spiral of the intelligence cycle as such, right? So, therefore, I think Pakistan can have any number of friends they want. Let them continue with those activities. It's our business to make sure that we can counter it. After all, there's a thing called counterintelligence. Counterintelligence को अगर आप क्या पर आप जोर देंगे, you will find the methodologies of it. You will make sure that you educate your own people, educate your population, have a good strategic culture. You will automatically find that you are neutralizing the efforts of these nations. So don't get worried by this. I don't think this is anything to really worry about.
The last question for the day, sir. What are your thoughts on Maoist insurgency, which is homegrown and over 30 years long? The communists have the best track record of overthrowing regimes in history. This probably is alluded to the fact that the half front,
Yeah.
one third of half front is, yes.
We need to answer this question frankly and transparently.
Yeah.
You're right. When we were looking at 2.5 front, we were looking at the insurgent situation in Jammu and Kashmir. We were looking at Punjab. We were looking at the Maoist belt. We were looking at the Northeast. I mean, there's a whole continuum of all this, if you look at it, which is really the half front as such. To come specifically to the Maoist issue, from the days of 2009, 8, 9, when that famous ambush took place in which 75 CRPF people were killed, personnel were killed, we have come a long way. In fact, I was reading the newspaper today. Yesterday only we have killed, I think, 4 important operatives of the Maoist cadres somewhere in Chhattisgarh or one of those places. Our losses are comparatively much reduced today, right? And I think by and large the Maoist insurgency is now on the run. In the sense, the insurgents are generally on the run. But remember one thing, the Maoists have a long-term strategy. 2046 is what they're looking at. We are 2024. They are looking at 2046. This up and down dynamic situations don't really matter to them. They say, don't worry, you have hit us now, we'll come back. We'll hit you again, right? We will develop our networks all over again. Now, this is something you have to be very careful of. Don't ever get complacent on this. The moment you start saying, oh, I've got the better of him, I've got the better of the network. See, this year's statistics say I have killed so many Maoists and I've only lost so many soldiers. The day that you start quoting this, you're going to get complacent. And you cannot afford complacency in this kind of thing at all. But for now, I can tell you, we have the better of the Maoist insurgency as far as central India is concerned.
I think that's all for the day, sir. We'll not take any more questions. And we can keep a lot of questions are there, but we'll stop it at that. I think, sir, we've had a fantastic discussion. Let me put it across to you. हमने पूरा जो इंडियन आर्मी चीफ का जो उन्होंने बोला और उन्होंने जो व्याख्या दिया है उसका हमने विश्लेषण किया है. That is one part. A lot of positives are there in what he spoke, which I have no doubt. And a lot of candidness in admitting own mistakes, which you have pointed out very rightly. And the second part, we have focused on something which is future. We have to start looking. We have to rethink of where things are in the evolving strategic and geopolitical scenario. And for that, sir, maybe sometime next week or 10-15 days later, we'll hold a brainstorming session on gunnershot. We'll get together a few more people who can think through this whole thing from different views and this thing. So with this, sir, we'll close down for today. Your final thoughts, and then we could say thank you.
Thank you, Shankar. Thank you. I think this was a very interesting gunnershot that you had today. And on a very interesting subject, because we got the scope to develop a very vast canvas. Sometimes we get focused on one subject and it's difficult to get out of that, but he had a very wide focus to speak about today. I think the biggest takeaway from me from the chief's media conference was the fact that he was very forthright in admitting to mistakes. And the moment an organization starts admitting its mistakes, it is now in the right position to set right the issues which have brought about those mistakes. And that, to my mind, is a very great thing for an organization like ours. We must never be seen to be someone who always thinks that we know everything. We are going to seek ways and means by which we will continue to improve. And I have no I have no reason not to believe this fact that the Indian Army can only further improve on what it has learned so far.
Thanks a
Jai Hind.
lot, sir, and thanks a lot to everyone who's watched us. Jai Hind, sir, and good night to you.
Good night.